We need to bring back the old world. Something's missing. It's been missing for a long time. The more I think about it and the more I compare the old world to the new world, the more I realize people need to get back into contact with the earth, really, with themselves. And people need to work on increasing their attention spans. I think I'm starting to realize why these generations, as they come up, are finding it harder and harder to define themselves. It's because they don't have the attention span for it. When you look at all the fads and trends that are happening these days, like how long does a fad or a trend last now? Andy Warhol said it best. Everybody gets their 15 minutes of fame. But what has that 15 minutes of fame been dwindled down to? I think we're like at 15 seconds of fame now. And when you look at TikTok and you look at Instagram and Reels and Shorts, you start to realize that people just don't have the attention span for a long-term trend. So when you look at the 70s or you look at the 80s, for example, people's attention spans weren't completely shot. So you could take your time to really unpack something that was happening in the culture. It wouldn't just last 15 seconds. It wouldn't just last a few minutes. Whereas these days, people don't even have the attention span for 2-3 minutes. Just giving all of the different digital devices and all the different things people can do without really thinking about it. And that's exactly kind of where we are in the culture these days. We're at a place where the old world is being forgotten and it's being replaced with this trendy fad world where nothing really has any true substance anymore. And we're locked into superficiality. We're locked into faux personas, fake personas. And we forgot to look to the elder generations, to the older generations for guidance. People no longer care what the older generations think as much. But what the new generations have to understand is that people that are older have lots of lessons to teach. You'll find with somebody that's a little older that they have a little bit more of a bird's eye view or a further out perspective. You can see a lot more of the long-term thought processes. Now, I'm not saying all, but I'm saying there's a lot of people that are older have a little bit more patience. They allow for things to unwind. They don't necessarily, no, I shouldn't say that. Lots of people do jump to snap judgments. But you'll find these days that people don't even bother to look into why they think how they think. So if they see like a headline on Twitter or something like that, like some sensational headline, they won't even read beyond the headline. They'll just assume whatever the headline says is the truth. They won't even bother reading the article. They don't determine who the writer of the article is. They don't determine where the sources come from. None of that matters. They don't let the story unpack. People instantly jump into one side or the other because people are so easily divided these days. And that's a lot because they're so distracted. Because if you can pump out, that's the thing with the social media, with the Twitters and the Instagrams and you name it, and Snapchats and all that stuff, you can get a story cycling so quickly that think about it, in the 80s or in the 90s, how long did it take for a story to get around? Right? You have to wait for things to be printed and pressed. You know, magazines, whether it be the news that you used to watch back in the day, your local news. But now, literally, if something happens big in the world, you find out within seconds of the event. And because of that, people become so distracted so easily because it's so easy to put out distracting material. So I ask, where are the old souls? Where are the wise ones? Where are the people to say, hey, let's slow down a bit. Let's unpack this. Let's rely on a little something called patience. And let's actually look into what happened and what's going on, and let's try to determine the truth of the matter. I think people are so concerned about being right that they forget the whole point of having a conversation or debating something is to find the truth in the matter. It's not about being right. It's about finding what is the truth, like what actually happened. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Let's find the truth. That should be the goal about what's going on. And you watch as the attention spans of the people are slowly stripped away, and they don't even realize why or what's happening, and why does it matter to be able to concentrate on just one thing at a time. Like, imagine if you had to ask somebody to concentrate on one thing at a time, how crazy that would be for somebody to actually do. Right? It's about, as you look back and as you start to kind of mature a little bit, you start to realize a few things. One of the big lessons I have is, you know what, just because your brother isn't right doesn't mean he's not your brother, right? He's still your brother. And I think that's really important for people to understand, is that people can be wrong, and that's okay to be wrong. But at the end of the day, that person is still your brother, that person is still your friend, that person is still your neighbor. So you don't just throw out the person because they were wrong about something or you disagree about something. Like, that needs to stop. We have to stop letting ourselves be so easily divided, and remember that, you know, these are your friends, these are our friends, these are your neighbors, these are your co-workers, these are the people that you go to the coffee store, go to the shop to buy stuff from. You know, those are the people in your community. So don't forget, just because your brother's wrong, or just because your brother or your sister thinks something differently, doesn't mean they're not your brother anymore. They still are. So quit throwing your friends away. Quit throwing your family away. And start thinking and understanding that there's so much more to the world than just trying to get a perspective across that, for the most part, is probably not even your perspective. And as you start to slow down and you start to realize that being right, or arguing for the sake of arguing, or arguing just over something as ridiculous as politics, is a complete waste of your time. That's what they want you doing. When I talk about bringing the old souls and talking to the old souls, and why it's important to have that feeling where you realize that life is short and life is long. And as you look back on your life, you start to realize and you start to understand that there's a lot of things that maybe you thought you were right on at the time, but you're actually wrong. And it seems like people are so afraid to be wrong these days. It's funny because actually, for the most part, if you talk to people, most people always think they're right. Pretty much everybody feels like been there, done that. Just because you watched a YouTube video, or just because you saw a reel on Instagram, or you saw a story on Twitter, that doesn't mean you experienced it, right? That doesn't mean been there, done that. Watching something on YouTube, or watching something on TV, or watching an Instagram reel, or watching somebody talk is not the same thing as experiencing whatever the situation is yourself. So you haven't been there, you haven't done that. And people got to understand, like, that's just the reality of the facts. So quit acting like you know everything. Because let's be real, just because you can Google something doesn't mean you're right. Doesn't mean you have wisdom. Doesn't mean you have knowledge. You can just Google something and it reads something to you. And you just believe, okay, well, if it says it on Google, then it has to be true. Not understanding how algorithms work, not understanding how companies and corporations work, how companies and corporations have their own values and have their own interests. Like, that's just the reality. Like, that's what it comes down to. So I just think that making sure that we take time to, well, this is another thing that I've really noticed, is that in it doesn't matter the age group of people these days, but basically people are terrified to be alone. And it's almost like their smartphone or their computer or whatever electronic device that they love has become their best friend. And it is there to always comfort them through every single second, every single moment of every single day. They go to sleep with it. They listen to podcasts, or they watch YouTube videos on the way to sleep, or they're playing video games on it. They're never alone. People are scared to be alone, it seems. And what people gotta understand, there's a difference between aloneness and loneliness. And you can't be and sometimes you need to be by yourself, whether that be in your room or in nature, with everything turned off, with all your smart devices or dumb devices turned off, and you're just out here experiencing the world and allowing yourself to kind of be alone and with your thoughts and with your feelings, and work on trying to get a little bit more congruency in your life, so that when you're having a conversation with somebody, your head and your feelings match. You're not just saying things to look a certain way. You know, the power of authentic conversation, the power of sincerity, the power of talking with your head and your heart at the same time, and making sure they both are talking in congruency. This is how you can really truly have those peer-to-peer conversations where people really feel like you care, and you do care, because you're showing it by listening to the person, not just with your head, but with your heart and wholly. You're listening to the whole their body. And I think that listening and finding ways to connect in that way, so that we can start really, connecting with each other and determining what somebody is really saying or what they're trying to say, and having what you would call those heart-to-heart conversations, right? Because there is a power in honesty. There is a power in really truly trying to find a way to express yourself authentically. Now, I think one of the other things we need to understand is, I do talk a lot about authenticity and why it's important to be yourself. You have to understand is that you're not always the same way all the time, right? How you are around your niece or your nephew is going to be different than how you are around your really close friends that you grew up with, or it's going to be different how you are with your parents, but it's still going to be the same core values. Being authentic is meaning you just have a set of values that you follow and you adhere to and you're consistent with. And that's what it really comes down to. Are you being true to yourself in the exchanges with the people that are around you? And that's really what it comes down to when it comes to being authentic. Or are you putting on a persona, putting on a mask so that you can fit in to whatever reality you're currently in? Whether you be at work and your boss is there and they ask you a question, and really you don't give them the real answer. You don't give them the answer that you feel is the correct answer. Instead, you give them the answer you think that they want to hear, right? You just do the yes man thing because it's just easier for you to agree, to get along, versus following the path of most resistance. And I'm not saying you need to challenge people at every turn, at every go. But the more and more people refuse to be themselves, and people refuse to determine information for themselves, determine right and wrong for themselves, have a list of values that they live by. If you don't have that, what do you have? Then you just have a whole bunch of people going around chasing money, chasing status. And the old generations and a lot of the older people know that life is so much more than money and status. It's about having peace. It's about having wisdom and integrity, right? It's about community and living well together. It's so much more than just look at what I can do, look what I got. No, like what can you do to make your community a better place? What can you do to help the youth grow into themselves and help the youth find what's important to themselves? Right? What can you do to help the next generation understand that there is value in turning off the electronic devices and listening? I really think that when you look at even, I got look at all these things I'm getting on me. When you look at even the most recent, style or ways that these politicians like to debate, let's say, it's essentially become just people yelling over each other versus having a conversation about ideas. And I think that because people see politicians doing this, or they see on TV, this is how people talk on TV, this is how the reality show people do it, this is how people on the internet, on Facebook, on YouTube, this is how they get views, this is how they get eyes on things, is by yelling and creating drama. So everybody thinks, well, that's the way to go, because that gets the most eyes. The more controversy you have, the more views you get, the more money you get, the more clout you get, the more fame you get. And that's just not how the world works. Or that's how it's working right now. It's not, actually, I wouldn't say that's not how you create a proper community and a proper society based on trust, on shared values, and on caring about each other authentically, really meaning it. And I'm not talking about this pathological empathy that people are having these days, this pathological where people can just do anything in society. They could steal, they can rob, they can kill, they can do drugs out in the open, and people are just like, well, they're lost. And they just have this pathological empathy that I really think is actually a very bad thing for society. You have to draw the line at certain things. You get what you accept. If you accept lawlessness in the streets, that's what you get. You get more of that. So you need to really come together as a community and determine, what are those shared values? What is right? What is wrong? Simple as that. Let's see, where else do I want to go? But I think part of being, as you get older and you have more perspective, and you find the wise ones, you find the ones that really take their time to unpack things, ones that have demonstrated that they have wisdom and they have a sense about themselves. You got to find those ones that have taken the time, to really reflect and understand their inner world. And I really think that the inner monologue, the inner world is kind of gone now. I mean, it's there, but it's not like, but people can't seem to stay on their inner monologue for long periods of time because it's so easy to get distracting, and sometimes it's hard to sit there by yourself. You feel like it's hard, and to really go deep and try to figure out, what really truly matters to you. What do you think's important in the world, in your life, in the types of people you have around you, in the society that you're in? And sometimes people just sitting there, like, I'm telling you right now, if you just go, if you're stressed out and you just go into like a really beautiful forest or even into a really beautiful park and you just have a seat in the park, you turn off all your devices and you just sit there and you just look at the trees and you just look at the bark and you just look at all the nature around you, and it brings you back to yourself because you remember that this was here before everything else. This was here before social media. This was here before smartphones and electronic devices. This was here before the internet. That's it. Nature. And nature only creates originals, and I've talked about this before. So it's the greatest reminder of the importance of being yourself. Like you don't tell a tree how to tree. A tree just knows how to tree. You know what I mean? And on the same token, you can't get mad at a rock for being hard. And this is an interesting statement. I don't know where I read it, but I read it somewhere. You know, sometimes I'm walking down the street and I see something I don't like, or something kind of sets me off in a way. And now I look at it and that's just reality. That person's in their own world doing their own thing. And you can't get mad at a rock for being hard, right? You can't get mad at a person for being bad or something that you don't like, right? Because nature's gonna nature. You can't control nature. So I really like that statement. You can't get mad at a rock for being hard. It is what it is. So if you can't control it, then move on, right? So that's why when somebody bumps into me, or, you know, like accidentally or something, you know, or I get a red light and I want to cross the street, it's a red light. I don't get mad at the red light for doing what it's supposed to do, right? And that's the same with people, and that's the same with circumstances. At the same time, though, don't get me wrong, there's always a line to be drawn. You can't be eventually sometimes you come down to you need to stand for something. You need to stand for some values. And understand that there's probably more in the world. There's probably something higher out there that you're not aware of. Because I know right now it's so easy for people to feel like they know everything. Because it's so easy to get information these days. It's so easy to use AI to find information or to create something for you. And you start to realize, and you start to think that all the information out there is already known. But the reality is, that's not the case. When you look at some of the greatest thinkers in the world, the Greeks, you look at Socrates, and he knew nothing, basically. Hello, buddy. He knew nothing. So if some of the smartest thinkers in the world know that there's a lot more that they don't know than they do know, then I would have to say that goes the same for us. I definitely do not know everything. There's so much things that I don't know. Like, what do I really know? I don't know. But I know I don't know everything. And I know that just because I can Google something, or just because I can use AI to do something for me, or I can use like the internet to determine where to go, I can get GPS. What happens if the internet turned off, power turned off? What would you do then? What would you do if there was no power to help you, right? I think this is what you gotta understand. And just because you can Google something doesn't mean you know something. It gives people a false sense of security as to who's right and who's wrong. And people are way too reliant on technology, way too reliant on Google and algorithms and search engines. I wasn't sure, I talked a little bit about YouTube before, but did you know that YouTube is actually the second biggest search engine in the world behind Google? So it's Google, number one search engine, and then number two is YouTube. So not only is YouTube social media, it's also a huge search engine. It's a place for entertainment, it's a place to learn stuff. You know, it's basically interactive Google is really what it is. Interactive entertainment, interactive knowledge, because you can actually reach out and touch the people, you know. You can actually put a comment on a YouTube video and you might get a response. And which reminds me, I forgot to talk about this earlier in the video, but let's go over here. But I'm starting my memberships up, so so make sure you take a look there at my memberships and sign up, because I'm going to start dropping at least a video a week on my membership only page. So if you have a chance, take a time, sign up there. It'll really help for me. Also, I have, you'll see there's merch. If you look up here, there's merch. And basically what the merch is, that's a painting I made. I put it on hoodies, I put it on mugs, I put it on stickers. And if you want to support me, just, you know, buy one of those, buy some stickers, only like $3. So whatever it is, like I bought some of my own merch, it's coming through, so I'll be wearing it soon. So just make sure that you do me the favor and, you know, sign up for the membership. So far, I just want to thank everybody that's just something I wanted to make sure I plug here as I go through this. So if you're interested in a little bit more of this spicier content, that's what I'll be doing on the membership only stuff. But yeah, this is something that, so when I think about and I talk about the old souls and I talk about, you know, why we need to kind of bring back the old world, what I'm talking about is bringing back patience. What I'm talking about is bringing back attention spans. What I'm talking about is bringing back alone time, bringing back time without electronic devices, without being connected to the internet, without having Wi-Fi. Time for you to be alone by yourself and think and feel and just breathe and be. That's what I'm talking about. You know, the feeling of how great the feeling is to go for a beautiful walk in nature, to, you know, take your dog out, to do these sorts of things. Right? What it feels like to actually build your own things, build your own chairs, or build your own sheds, or build anything. Build your own songs, music, paintings. Build your own. Instead of consuming, you create something. So focusing on creating with your whole heart and your mind and your heart. And get back to just remembering to live. Remember, you got to live. And you got to think about it like this. Every time, every minute you waste on social media, on watching useless TikTok videos, on things that don't matter, you can never get that time back. So you're paying to watch and waste your life with your time. You would rather give your time away, which is irreplaceable, than give your money away. People are so attached to money but they'll give their time away for free, and time can't be replaced. So if you're spending 8 hours a day on your cell phone, that's like you're giving 8 hours of your life away. For what? You can't get that time back. You can't get any time back. So wasting it that way, wasting it on things that don't matter, it's a sad way to go. You're going to wake up one day at the end of your life and you're going to realize, what did I spend all my time on? And you might be sitting on a big pile of money that you didn't spend because you earned all this money. But what did you do with the time you had? This is the question. Did you truly live your life? I'm Matt Ross. I'm the Lone Wolf.